My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here. And today I have the pleasure of bringing in a friend of mine from way back. So back when I started my web and graphic design agency, which was like 95, so 95 or 96, I haven't exactly figured out what exact year, but it was something like that. When I first got into networking, like at first I was doing it by myself and trying to figure out I knew nothing about marketing. And then I ended up getting into marketing. I joined a local chamber, and then I joined another local networking group. And it was so fun. I mean, that's how I really grew my business. And one of the wonderful people from that group was today's guest, which is Lisa Bowers. And she has over 30 years of experience in health and wellness as a health and wellness mentor. She's worked alongside functional medicine practitioners, herbalists, naturopaths, neuroscientists, and a lot of other holistic experts. She's been a friend of mine for almost as long as any friend that I've got. So Lisa, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Hey, Eli, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. We do go way back, and when we were talking about that the other day, I couldn't believe how many years it had been.
Yeah, I mean, we're
So,
looking at over 25 years. It's like I don't remember how long specifically from that 95, 96
right,
mark to where I actually joined, Metro Pros,
right.
and from that point. And it's just so weird to think about
I
how
know.
long you and I've been friends, which is so awesome. And,
And,
and I'm honored to be able to have you come hang out today.
and I appreciate you. I think we've always been a good support system for each other.
Hmm.
We've always kind of meshed and been able to bounce things off of each other. So,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you
Well,
for
that's
being in my life.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That makes me feel good. Yeah. So a little bit, I'm going to share a little bit more of our history before we dig into all the stuff that you do. But for everybody else's experience, so
Mhm.
you guys can understand. Like we met networking at this small group. There's maybe 25, 30 of us that met every week for breakfast. It was back in the day when I actually still got up early. I don't do that anymore. But back then, we did that, and we had gotten to be such good friends. We used to go hiking on Saturday when I still complained about going hiking. And it was like, my idea of hiking was going from my car to the counter to get my mocha in the morning. And it's so cool to see how far, both of us has come in our lives
Yes,
since then. So
yes.
that's the fun part. I just had to share a little bit about that because you and I used to go hiking like every Saturday, which was a lot of fun. And then of course we
We've
did
grown up,
convention.
Eli.
We have, yeah. I was a baby back then too. I really
Me too.
was. Yeah. So okay. So let's get to tell us a little bit more. Tell everybody a little bit more about what is it you actually do and how do you
Yeah.
help your clients?
Well, I love the world of natural health. I truly believe that God made us to soar, and I truly believe that He made our bodies to want to heal themselves. So I help guide people in that direction. I use several modalities. I have questionnaires. I have a what's called a biofeedback type device that uses biofrequency to read the body, give me assessments on that. I work with herbs. I work with different supplements. And in the past, I've also worked with some different forms of like David glasses that help balance the brain, all kinds of fun tools. I put myself in the biohacking field, which I think a lot of you know who Dave Asprey is, and he's actually the one that coined that term. But that just means self experimentation, and I do a lot of that. So I always experiment on myself before I work on my clients, and
Right.
that's fun. I am always learning. I'm always educating myself. I've had the blessing of working with, as you stated earlier, these wonderful functional medicine practitioners and neuroscientists. So it's given me a very strong background that I think a lot of people do not have. I can get very geeky. I can get very wrapped up in that. And sometimes you have to hone me in and say, okay, now say this in English. So
Right. Well, and it's what's funny and what I've actually enjoyed about your stuff, because I've known you for all of this stuff. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of people that are in more of the holistic realm. And it's so funny because most of my friends that are in the holistic world, they're okay with me saying in that woo woo world. And but
Hmm.
here's the thing with it is like what makes you different and why I've always loved the stuff that you do is that you have the science side of it as well, and not just the knowledge of the science, but you have, the tech. You actually have
Yes.
gizmos and gadgets and stuff that you use. And it's not just, it's not just um now it just died out of my brain. Like not just like the minerals or the rocks where a lot of people
Hmm.
in the holistic world, that's where they go. You're talking actual like literal equipment,
Yes.
and you've taught me so much about this stuff, which has been amazing. So I wanted to kind of put that out there and let people know this isn't just, so much of the stuff we see, which I'm not knocking it in any way, shape, or form, but so much of it is built in pure blind faith,
Right.
where a lot of the stuff that you have gotten into is like you've got the true science and the equipment behind it, which is a whole different game, in my
Thank
opinion.
you for that. Absolutely. And I can tell you one of my biggest learning curves or those moments where I felt so anchored in what I was doing was when I was traveling with a neuroscientist, and we traveled internationally with a meditator, and we would do brain maps on those meditation events. And then we would come back and we would export them. And oh my gosh, the science behind that was incredible. The
Yeah.
stories I have in behind that was incredible. When you can watch people's brains in action and you see spontaneous healings and you see their brains shift as they're meditating, that's priceless. It
Right.
makes us look at our brains in a whole different world. And one of my favorite stories I love to tell is we were brain mapping a woman, actually here in Carefree, Arizona. And when we exported her data, the frontal lobes, which are right here is FP1, FP2, tend to run between 20 and 40 hertz. And when we exported her data, it was over 1 million hertz each side. And we were like, what on earth was going on while you were meditating and we were brain mapping you? And she said that she had people from all over the world praying for her while we were brain mapping her. So I already believed in prayer, but that really solidified that our thoughts, our energy, those around us does matter. It makes a difference in our world.
I love it. And it's so cool to see those kind of things in action. And again, the point of that I wanted to make with this was you're not just doing a meditation, but you're actually doing the brain scan of what happens when
Hmm.
you have that meditation and how it
Yeah,
affects somebody. It's like that's the difference. That's the piece that makes
absolutely.
such a powerful impact where you can see, okay, not only does this stuff work, but we have proof that it works.
Hmm.
Not coincidence, not could be hearsay, but
Right.
actually, here's a before, here's an after, here's what happened. Boom, done.
Right. And I'm starting to move in that direction with my AO scanner,
Mhm,
trying to work with people that do some of this woo woo work, and do some scanning have them
mhm.
go through whatever their process is, do scanning post, compare the two, and let's see how it affects the body.
Right.
The
Very cool.
difference is how you look at it, because even with the brain maps, with some of the events that would happen, a regular neuroscientist might look at it and go, oh my gosh, they're having a seizure. But really, it's the body's way of, shutting processes down, opening up, and tapping into whatever it is they're tapping into. So it can
Right.
also be in how you interpret some of the information you're receiving.
Right. No, I love that. And I want you to go into a bit more with the AO scan because it's something you just did with me recently. But before we go do
Hmm.
that, I want you to explain so with what give me a good example of something as somebody who would come to you what's the problem that they have
Hmm.
and what's the journey look like there?
Absolutely. Honestly, I'm normally the end of the road.
Okay.
I'm that person that has tried everything. They've gotten no answers. and they desperately need answers. So, I do questionnaires. I want to know what their sleep is like. I want to know what their diet's like, their hydration. What are they doing day to day? What is their emotional state like? And so I use a subjective measure, which is that, and then I use an objective measure, which is the AO scan. So I know we'll go into that a little more later, but that gives me a lot of feedback, a lot of information. I like to do 3 of those when I'm working with them. We'll talk to them about sleep and diet and exercise and changes. I like to see how that might shift and then come back later and do post scans to see what those results are looking like. I might suggest I cannot diagnose,
Right.
I cannot prescribe, but I can say, look, if I were in your shoes, this is what I would do.
Mhm.
This
Right.
is the path I would take. I know that's frustrating sometimes for people because they really want somebody to be able to, say, do this, 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 and this.
Right.
But I can definitely walk you through and say, if this was my journey, this is what I would be looking at.
Right. Well, and there's part of that is the obviously the legal standpoint of it, just like
Mm-hmm.
you have to cover your rear just to make sure it's like, okay, I can't prescribe anything. I can't say you have to do this because that could get you in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
especially if something doesn't work right. There's a lot of silly legalities that go into that. So I
Mm-hmm.
totally understand the situation. But the cool thing about it is you're like, okay, so the doctors have already said this stuff and it ain't working. Why don't you
Right.
try this now?
Right.
But
And
you've got some data behind it now as well.
absolutely. And sometimes it's eliminating. Sometimes they are given so much,
Hmm.
so many supplements, so much that is just honestly blowing their body up,
Right.
that their liver is struggling. It's not really processing things the way it needs to. It's crying for help.
Hmm.
So we can see that as well, energetically, frequency based, not
Right.
diagnostically.
Right.
But it allows me to say, let's take a step back. Sometimes life is just about taking a step back, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's also, like from my personal experience, you had, and I don't remember the name of it, but you remember the machine that you had years ago and
Hmm.
with our pup Malachi when he was sick. And
Yes,
you actually diagnosed the problem before the vets could.
yes, the
And
QXCI skill. Hmm.
mhm, yeah. And because he was having a lot of problems and we just couldn't figure out what it was. And the vets
Right.
just couldn't figure it out. And ultimately, it ended up being a liver failure.
Right.
And that was and this is one of the reasons why I was sold on the stuff that you do is because
Yeah.
they couldn't figure it out. And you came in, did this scan, and figured it out. And ultimately, when he did end up passing, that's what it
Mm.
was.
And Eli, I don't know if you remember this, and I'm sorry if I get emotional when I talk about it,
So do
but
I.
I know. Okay, folks, we're going to sit here and cry together. But I was actually scanning him. You can scan even with what I have now, what's called distance.
Hmm.
Um, it's quantum science from afar.
Right.
And I was actually running him when he passed, but I didn't know he had passed.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, his levels just perfected.
Wow.
And I just sat there and I thought, oh my gosh, he's not here anymore,
Hmm.
which broke my heart.
Yeah.
But on the
Mhm.
other hand, to see that perfection happen was another life changing moment.
Wow. Okay. Well, I didn't know that.
That's what I'm like, I'll sit here and cry.
Yeah, no, and that kind of stuff it's pretty powerful stuff when you realize, if you think about it, we know that we are made up of energy, right?
Right.
And that's something that science has pretty much given to us
Hmm.
from forever ago, right? But people don't realize how powerful that really is,
Right.
and that's where these kind of things come into play. And what you're doing, it actually teaches, it uses the energy. And it's like, okay, what kind of vibes are you putting out? What are those
Hmm.
vibrations? What does that look like?
Hmm. It's
And
very
yeah.
educational. That's called bioresonance,
Hmm.
and it works with our body's frequency. to see what's going on. And what a lot of people don't understand, because we're so rooted in hard science, is that we are energetic beings. We are vibration and frequency and energy, and we're putting that energy out. We're taking energy in all the time,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and that is what's being read through these devices. I always attribute it to like a ceiling fan. When a ceiling fan is still, you can see it's got blades. It looks like it has space in between it. But when you have one that's spinning really fast, it looks solid.
Right.
And that's how our frequency is, our energy. If our cells, if our everything stopped spinning, this chair would fall apart then in one.
Right.
My
Yeah.
body would fall apart. So literally everything is frequency and
Mm-hmm.
energy.
Yeah. I love it.
And
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think in many ways that simplifies it
Yeah.
instead of complicates it. If we can really think that things are either vibrating with us and making us stronger, or it's just nulling it out, or it's
Mm-hmm.
vibrating and making things worse. For me, that simplifies life.
Right. Well, it's good, and it's good because then you have somewhere to go. I mean, that's the fun thing
Hmm.
about this is that
Yeah.
the science that you're doing with these things is based around. It's like, okay, you're lost, you're confused, you don't know what to do. Where do I even start?
Hmm.
And that's where a
Hmm.
lot of what you're doing comes in. Now, before we get into the AO scan, because I want to give you a chance to talk about that. What I want to do is give somebody an example of the types of things that you can help with, because I think we're still kind of playing a little bit in the woo woo
Hmm.
world, and it's like,
We
okay,
are.
so how are we, where does this really come into play for somebody? You said that you're a last resort for a lot of people.
Yes. May I tell my own story? How I got
Yes,
into
please
it.
do, please do. That I
Yes.
think
And
that'll
I
give people a lot of clarity to what it is you really do.
I do too, and I think that'll help a lot. So I started in this world, 35 plus years ago, when my husband then was diagnosed with leaky gut. And at the time, it was like, oh my gosh, that's great, but how do we fix it? So that's when I started researching and really getting into the world of herbs. Found that there was a lot of benefit to that. Well, fast forward a few years, and I had my own issue come up. I went to go see a girlfriend who was dying of cancer in Washington State. And when I came back, I had like a boil on my bottom. And by the end of the night, it went systemic. Well, that lasted for 8 months. I had one side of my face paralyzed. I couldn't hardly wear clothing. I couldn't, if I touched my own skin, it would welt. Until a friend of mine who's a naturopathic doctor got the device that Eli was referencing called the QXCICO. And in 4 sessions, my highs were gone. What that did is it worked on my emotional side, my physical side, and honestly, I even think my spiritual side, and helped calm all of that out and level it out via frequency. So that's how I got involved in it. Um, and those are the kinds of conditions I work with. I work with people that have a lot of digestive issues, a lot of sleep, dementia, Alzheimer's, different things like that, that are just looking for supportive tools. And that's what I love, is that these are tools that they can take with them to help support their system.
That is great. Awesome. And it's that I think that's an example of real world see
Hmm.
it in action kind of situation. And that's the type
Hmm.
of stuff we're looking for, because that's the biggest thing is like any of this kind of stuff, people don't understand it if they can't see the tangible with it.
Right.
And so that's where, this kind of stuff, if you're getting into number one, if you're stuck and the doctors can't figure out an answer,
Hmm.
you talk to someone like Lisa here, right?
Hmm.
That's like, and hopefully you meet somebody like her and start talking to her sooner so you don't run into that problem. But
Right.
yeah,
Yes. Let's create balance before it gets out of balance.
exactly, because we're human beings and we take care of ourselves in a horrible way in so many different directions.
And thank you for that, because what I want to equate that to, I always say that our health can be like a tire, and it
Hmm.
can get a little bubble in it. We could be riding along for a long, long time and not have any idea that anything's going on until it blows, right?
Right. Hmm.
And that's the beauty of the work that I do. Because it's frequency based, it can actually see the frequency developing in a negative way or
Mm.
positive
Right.
long before it happens.
Right. Yeah. So I want to go ahead and move into the AO scan and what you're doing with
Hmm.
that, because I want you to share some of that. Recently, you and I did that. Was it about 2 weeks ago, something
It
like
was.
that?
Yes.
And why don't we start off? Kind of explain what it is and how it works.
Yes. It is considered a bioresonance device. Great minds were put into this. There's Rife therapy, there's some of Einstein's work, there's Tesla's work, and it's all put into this incredible device. It was first, though, based off of what's called the inner voice. And Eli, I did that with you. So it takes a 10-second recording of our voice. The voice tells a lot. It uses technology very similar to a lie detector test, and it measures the three highest frequencies out of range and the one lowest. And those frequencies are very connected with very specific imbalances in our body. So the brain is actually what's giving the feedback. So it goes through the body, it scans it, and it gives feedback that our brain assesses. It gives information back, and it's 100% we're all based on frequency.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool because for everybody listening, when we did this exercise, it was fun and annoying all at once because from the fun standpoint is there was a couple things that you brought up in the results, and it talked about here's things where you might have some deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of them for me was dehydration, which for me I knew that was definitely a piece because I'm horrible about that. I've got my mocha sitting here instead of my water. Well, my water's sitting here, but it's over there where the mocha is right here. But that was one of the things, and I know that that's been an issue that I've had for years. Is I
Right.
tend to forget to drink enough water, and the other thing was liver function. You had brought that up for me,
Mm-hmm.
and the interesting thing is that is something that is in awareness. My doctors actually, I just did an annual check kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
they said everything is okay, but that's one of the things that they've been checking on to make
Oh, I
sure
didn't know
everything was good. And so it's like, okay, we're good to go. Um, and so those were the things that it's like your scan, not knowing anything about that,
that.
brought
Yeah.
up stuff that I was aware of that are concerns, known concerns. Now, just to play the fun part of this, the part that was annoying was out of the things you also gave me possible allergies or possible things that
Mm-hmm.
I should stay away from. And you brought up oranges, which I eat oranges like all the time. So
Right.
yeah, but that's the type of thing that we're talking about here, is that this kind of science is here without having to do massive testing
Right.
to find out, okay, here's the things maybe you should do more of this. Maybe you should be eating a little less of that thing. Things like that can throw our bodies out of whack, but we won't know it. And I mean, I know the difference between like, what you did with your scan versus going in and doing an allergy test. That's a whole different creature. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to like stick me with needles or
I
anything.
don't. And
Yeah.
that's the fun thing. I actually have done physical allergy tests,
Hmm.
sensitivity
Hmm.
compared to my scans, and
Yeah.
they've been pretty parallel for me. I
Nice.
can I can tell you, I have something called MTHFR, and anybody that has that syndrome knows what it is.
Okay.
But the equipment kept picking up for a long time, and then I finally did physical blood work to
Hmm.
validate it, and it came up. So now I know how to eat around that, what to do with it. And that's the cool thing about this is you're right. You don't have to be stuck. You don't even have to be right here with me.
Hmm.
That's the other part of it. If you do have the device yourself, which by the way is very affordable to have on your own, you can scan yourself every day. You can, I'm known for scanning my food sensitivities right before I go out to eat. So I know what
What to
to
stay away from.
stay away from.
Right.
And
No.
those type of circumstances. And the other cool part of that is in the inner voice reports that you received.
Hmm.
I don't have to diagnose you. It says right there, suggestions.
Right.
It has very blatant suggestions. And then we take from those 4 suggestions from the 4 reports, and I look at patterns for that day. For you, it was dehydration and chiropractic, was that?
Chiropractic was a big one, yes,
Mhm,
which has been on my list of
mhm,
things I've needed to do for way longer than I should have.
mhm,
Yep.
and those things showed up in every report, and so many times I'll have people when they see that go, "But I drink a ton of water." Well, now let's talk about your mineral then.
Mm,
Do you take enough minerals for your body to hold the water? Are you
right.
actually flushing yourself instead of hydrating yourself?
Right.
So it leads into a lot of connecting the dots. It's really, once you learn to do it, not hard because it also goes into chakras and meridians that gives um, physical
Mhm.
attributes to each one.
Yeah.
And just connect all of those dots, and it can give you a world of information.
Right. Well, and that was the thing that impressed me about it was how much data you were able to give me from that, and the fact that you were able to email me a report of here's the
Yeah.
things and here's what you're going after, and being able to see that and go, oh, okay, so I need to pay more attention to this, and you also brought up something I think is really important that people need to be aware of for any of this kind of stuff. Is you also told me is like as an example, like the oranges thing, you were like, okay, just avoid them for a day or two. We could maybe come back and scan again. It just may be your body's out of whack a little bit, and it's not something that's a permanent thing.
Right, right. We don't
Mhm.
look at it until I see it on every scan when I've done, 3, 4, 5 scans. For
Right.
me, it was almonds. For 3 years, I couldn't do almonds.
Mm.
3 years. It showed up in every scan, but
Right.
I was like you with oranges. I was, eating almonds. That was my go-to. I was doing almond milk, almond
Mhm.
flour,
Right.
and
Okay.
after a while, your body is just like, "Enough already."
Mhm.
Stop the insanity. It needs a break. Our
Well,
body does like rotation.
yeah, and that's I was
Right.
just thinking that too, is that, just like everything, people get into extremes on stuff, and especially when it
Mhm.
comes to diet and all that kind of stuff. And the reality is it's a lot of times it's fad based instead of just looking at it as like reality is how about just moderation?
Right,
It doesn't mean you have to stop completely,
right.
just not as much. Stop it for a little
Absolutely.
bit, see what happens. Because a lot of times it is our body just going, okay, we need a
Mhm.
change here. We need a break. And people just don't realize that they go to extreme measures on either side. Yeah.
And the other part of that scan that I really want to emphasize is the inner voice. That is what it was started from.
Hmm.
That used to be the only thing you could do. And what that inner voice scan gives you by your voice recording is very specialized pieces of music that have underlying what's called solfeggio frequencies and
Hmm.
binaural beats. And you listen to it with a headset. And that in and of itself, because the brain can be on tilt mode. And when you give these frequencies that are opposite of the tilt mode, it can help bring that body and that brain back into balance.
Right.
It can help calm. It can help. People think it's just if they're depressed or different things like that that they need this. But have you ever been so excited over something you couldn't couldn't settle your body down?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I always say sometimes that's when we need it as well. When we're just like whatever that over mode is,
Yeah.
bring the body back down, bring it back into calm. And those beautiful pieces of music can do that.
Right. Yeah, and I've got those. You gave those to me, so I've been listening to them, which
Good.
is good. Not every
Good
day like
job.
I plan on, but I've gotten them. I've 4 or 5
Good job.
times now, I think.
Okay.
And I'll just go in, lay down and the great thing is it's like 10 minutes.
Mhm.
It's kind of like if you're going to spend
Mhm.
time for meditating, so you could do something like
Mhm.
this as well. And I'll just spend like 10 minutes and just veg out and just chill. Sometimes I fall asleep,
Yeah.
but it is something. And if we think about it, like a lot of times, meditation has to do with tones and the music. And
Yeah.
you're talking about the binaural beats, which I've listened to stuff that have that in it for
Mhm. It goes from one side of
so
the head to
easily.
the other with a little
Hmm.
offset of frequency between the 2.
Yeah, at least 15 years, I think
Mm.
I learned about it from my first mentor in the marketing space. And
Nice.
he actually originally taught me some stuff about it, and I had no clue it even existed. And I still have that program. I haven't listened to that one for a while, but I've gotten into it because of that. And
I
I
think you knew about it before I did then.
probably, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a possibility. And that kind of stuff, it really does help. We know that taking time to, if we take time to stop and meditate, to just stop and do
Mhm.
breath work or whatever, there's a lot of different modalities out there, but this is just another piece of that. It's like, okay, if you stop and spend 10 minutes
Mhm.
a day, basically recharging yourself,
Right.
the rest of the day, like if you do that after lunch, the rest of your day could be skyrocketed productive.
Because, it helps with the parasympathetic nervous system. It helps calm down the body, the brain.
Hmm.
We stay so active in that fight or flight
Yep.
that our body just really gears towards that. And then that reminds me of in the brain, we have what's called neural pathways.
Hmm.
And that's these little pathways that our emotions and everything runs on. When we can learn to calm down our body, we can actually create new healthy neural pathways, a new road
Yep.
that our body wants to run on and clip those old neural pathways so that we bring that healthier, new calm to our body. And that's really what we're doing when we do breath work, when we do meditation, we do chanting. We're creating these new neural pathways in the body.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and it's the best thing about it, and you brought up the fact that we run in that flight mode all the time.
Oh, we do.
And the biggest thing with that is in today's, especially today's society, we're hustle, the hustle culture, right? And there's
Hmm.
starting to be movement against that to some degree, which is good. But the great thing is what I look at is, again, it's the extreme. You have the hustle culture and the
Hmm.
the self-love culture, and there's like, okay, what about the in between? And that's the
Exactly.
part people don't seem to remember. And that's where tools like this are really powerful, because like, okay, yeah, you're starting your business or you're running your business, you're an entrepreneur, you're motivated, you got a lot of stuff to do so you can make sure you pay the bills for the day.
Hmm.
However, can you stop and spend 10 minutes listening to these binaural beats in
Right.
order to get your brain back in the right direction, which
Hmm.
ultimately is going to help you become more effective with it. I mean, that's what we're
And
talking
it is what we're talking about. And I will admit I'm a multitasker.
about.
But what I like to do in the mornings is I run my inner voice, the whole scan actually first thing. It
Hmm.
only takes minutes. It doesn't take long at all. So I'll run it in the mornings, and I've learned to go in, do my exercise cycle, read my Bible study, and listen to my music
Hmm.
while I'm doing all of that. And for me, what that does, that inner voice taps into such a deep place in my soul. It brings such movement and emotion to my body that I don't even know if I can explain that. But it
Right.
also brings the depth of that meditation. I look at my Bible reading, my God time as meditation,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it brings such a depth to that that I don't experience quite the same way when I'm not using it. So
Right.
it's very moving. And if you think about music in and of itself, gosh, look at what they do with music and movies, how
Hmm.
they want to play our emotions, whether they want to get us our heart and our adrenaline going, or they want to calm us down. Do they
Right.
want it to feel romantic? Do we, do they want to bring emotion and tears to it?
Hmm.
So that frequency, that vibration is so powerful. There was actually studies done years ago with women with cancer, and they learned to play the harp, and the harp music, that
Hmm.
vibration against their body actually was helping them with their cancer.
Right. Wow. That's powerful. And I can
Yeah.
totally see that, because like, I mean, as I come from a music background, and for
You do.
me, my
Hmm.
favorite thing is listening to live music.
Yeah.
And for me, it doesn't matter even really what kind of music. I mean, I got a few that I prefer, but if I'm at a live show listening to music, I am more relaxed than I am
Hmm.
any other time, period, no matter
Hmm.
what. And because it just, as the saying goes, music soothes the soul, if I can even say that, right?
Absolutely.
So it really
Absolutely.
does. So awesome. This has been really, really good stuff. We're getting close to time here. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that you want to add before we wrap up here?
Just that we are so important as individuals. I think people don't want to do self-care sometimes. So step in, take care of your body before you do get to that point of
Yeah.
blowout.
No,
If you're curious, I'm here and we'll go into that, but practice self-care
right.
because nobody can take care of yourself better than you can.
All right, I love that. Awesome. Okay, so we have two final questions. We do this every show.
All
Last
right.
question is the easy one. How do people get a hold of you? Which we'll go with
Yeah.
that in a second. But before that, this is the Meet Cool People show. So
Yeah.
I always like to ask every one of my guests, what do the words Meet Cool People mean to you?
Mm. For me, it's those people that when you come together, they light up your world. There is something magical there that you resonate on. Maybe you can't even explain it, but you get in this energy and this flow that just really sinks to your heart. It might bring you to tears, it might bring you to joy, but there's something magical that happens there.
I love it. Awesome. Very cool. All right. So how do people get a hold of you?
Yes. Well, you can email me at anewcreationwellness@outlook.com or my website is anewcreationwellness.com.
Awesome. Super simple.
Yes.
All right. So everybody get out there. Be sure to connect with Lisa. And if you got questions about any of
Okay.
this kind of stuff, reach out to her.
Please do.
Be sure, yeah, please reach out to her. Tell her that you heard her on the show here.
Hmm.
I can save personal experience. I've known her for long time, and she's always been amazing. And so she does good work. And if you're curious, if you're frustrated with stuff that's going on in your life right now, especially in the health arena, have a
Yeah.
talk with her. The worst case scenario, she can't help you, but chances are she probably can point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Lisa.
So awesome. All right. So with that, thank you, Lisa, so much for coming and hanging out today. I really
Mhm.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful, and I hope we do it again.
Definitely. All right. Everybody get out there. Have an amazing, amazing week. As always, if there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out and let me know. Take care.
Bye.
And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.